My name is Phil. I'm a resident of West Valley City, which is just a few miles west of Salt Lake City, here in Utah, of course. And I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you about something new that we're looking at doing here in Salt Lake City. First, let me tell you a little about myself. I've been a Christian. I'm a Christian, and I've been a Christian for about 15 or so years. I've been studying the Bible on my own, as well as attending a number of different churches and denominations over those years. Also, I helped by the grace of God to start a ministry called Cyberlight Comics. And if you'd like to know more about that particular ministry, there's going to be some links right over there in the description area, and you can go ahead and check those out. But I want to talk a little bit about maybe something we can look at doing here in Salt Lake City. Well, one of the things, as I've grown up and grown older in God's Word, and I've done a lot of study, and I've done a lot of looking around, I've noticed that Christians are struggling with a lot of problems. Now, to some extent, this is to be expected. We are all Christians, but we're all still sinners, and we're living in a sinful world. Therefore, we're always going to experience difficulties and challenges as God allows them to come into our lives. However, when we hear about statistics such as the divorce rate in churches being the same in the church as outside the church, and we continue to see so many problems and divisions, it can be concerning. Lately, it seems like one of the biggest concerns is that people are leaving the churches by the thousands. According to one research survey, 1 million Christians almost are leaving churches in America every single year. They're staying true to the faith, but they're not going to churches. There's a lot of concerns there, and a lot of Christians now that have, for whatever reason, become disenchanted with the church and are going out and living a Christian life all on their own. And that presents a lot of its own set of problems, because God never intended for the Christian life to be a solo experience. There is a lot to be learned in the crucible of a family setting. And a lot of those Christians, thankfully, are married and have children and are still learning about God through that family. However, God also meant for us to learn from one another. Perhaps part of the reason why people are leaving churches is because they're having a hard time learning from one another, and they're not really getting a lot of opportunity to express their own gifts and talents, and finding a lot of opportunities where they can really exercise their spiritual gifts and teach other people. So we actually still have a lot of Christians who are going to church as well, because they want to learn more about God and they want to do the right thing. And we're oftentimes told that going to church is something that we absolutely need to do. And there's definitely a lot of great benefits about going to church. So we actually have two different sets of Christians that are kind of forming a bunch that go to church, and within those Christians, groups of Christians that go to church, there's lots of different denominations, different types of churches, like the modern churches versus the traditional churches, versus we even have the homegrown churches and whatnot. And then we have these Christians over here that are living by themselves, and they really don't get to interact that much with other Christians. They might have a few Christian friends or possibly some relatives and whatnot. And I've been praying and studying about this a lot, and I really feel a heart to bring God's, to kind of get God's people back together by His grace, of course. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at, and since I'm here in Salt Lake City, is possibly drawing Christians together here in Salt Lake City together. Not in a church setting or a formal gathering of any sorts. First, we'll just get to know each other. We're going to set up a website soon, saltlakechristians.com or something along those lines. Just watch my YouTube videos for more information if that becomes available. But this will provide a place where people can kind of post online and just start getting to know each other. We'll start putting together some events like dinners at Denny's or something, maybe going out to a ski slope or something like that. But just getting some different events that's going to give people the opportunity to come together in a public setting so we can start to get to know one another. and bring Christians that for whatever reason have left the institutional church, who've become disenchanted with it, bring those people together within each other, as well as bringing some of the people from the traditional churches who are still going to a traditional or modern day churches, and get these people to come together. With me too, because I'm not going anywhere right now. We can all come together and just become friends, learn from one another. The most important thing of all, the one thing that's missing in a lot of our lives, is that we need to learn how the practical way to fulfill the commandment that Jesus gave us. Jesus said, "This is how they will know you're my disciples, if you love one another." The problem is a lot of us aren't finding a lot of opportunities to love one another. Those of us who aren't going to church, we don't really get to love, which really means to serve or to give. We don't really get to love one another because we hardly know anybody else. We're living in our little isolated lives. We feel like we're alone, and we don't get a lot of chance to help other people outside of our own family or immediate circle of friends. On the other hand, those going to traditional church, there are a fair number of them who go to church every week, talk to a few people, but then will leave. And they might go once or twice a week, but they don't really get an opportunity to really serve or utilize their gifts in a way that bless others. This isn't what God intended. When you look throughout the New Testament, you see many indications that God has given us all talents and gifts. And the reason He's given us these talents and gifts is so we can serve one another, and in doing so, bring glory to Him. So our objective will be to get us to know one another, to find practical ways to bring us together. Not so that one person can just stand up and give a speech or take over the meeting, but rather so we can all just talk together, come together, reason together, get to know each other, and as we learn about each other's gifts and talents and whatnot, we can learn to help serve and love one another using those gifts and talents that God has given us, and therefore fulfilling His commandment to come together and love one another. Jesus said that the greatest commandment of all was to love God with all our heart, body, soul, mind, and strength, and that the second greatest commandment was to love one another. Are you doing that? Do you really have a lot of opportunity? Are you seeking every opportunity to love one another? I even put out there that in learning to love one another, learning to serve one another, you will learn so much more about God than you will through other ways, because its practical application is the fastest way to learn most things in life. You can only go so far in a classroom setting. This applies to anything in life, whether it's painting, driving, learning a new trade or a skill or whatnot. The classroom setting is important and it is helpful. And there's a lot of things that I personally learned in classroom settings or in church settings from pastors and whatnot. But it can only take you so far before you really have to go into the practical application. You can't learn how to swim in a desert. The heart of a Christian is living and serving one another. And to do that, we've got to get out there and find ways to do that. But we've got to find ways, of course, that are practical. And to do that, we've got to come together. We've got to find out who each other is. So if this interests you, write some comments down here on YouTube, on my YouTube comments below. Keep an eye over here on my YouTube channel, because as more details become available, I'm going to be posting more of these videos as we go along. Feel free also to check out CyberlightComics.com. We got a board over there, and I'm always on that particular bulletin board. You're more welcome to come and join us and talk about anything, including this or whatnot. You can also just email me. My email address will be on here somewhere, so feel free to email me as well if this interests you. So subscribe if you're interested. Keep track of what's going on. Thank you so much. God bless, and I hope to get to see some of you in the very near future. Take care.
Let there be love, let there be light, peace in